Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on the road to recovery, how OTAs can help drive sustainable recovery for tourism SMEs. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Pruangkarn. I am the Director of Communications and External Affairs at the Pacific Asia Travel Association. Um, COVID-19 has and will continue to dramatically affect the global travel and tourism industry, including within Asia-Pacific. Over the next year and beyond, recovery will be slow. However, online travel agencies are playing a crucial role in the recovery process. PATA has just recently released a report titled The Role of Online Travel Agencies in Support of Asia-Pacific SMEs in Recovery. And with that, we worked with several partners to help publish the report. Today, we will first hear a presentation about the report from 2031, who helped author it, which will be followed by a one-on-one interview between me and Mr. Timothy Hughes at Agoda. And with that, I would like to now welcome Oliver Martin, partner at 2031. Oliver, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. I'm just going to share my screen, Paul.
Okay.
And there it is. Okay. Hi, everyone. So we had the pleasure of working with PATA and Agoda to develop this thought leadership report. This report is qualitative thought leadership. We did extensive research on the internet to find out public domain research and documents that focused on OTAs, online travel agencies, and their role within the travel and tourism industry. As part of that, to supplement those learning, we did a number of in-depth interviews with senior level managers and directors and executives at small and medium-sized enterprises in the tourism industry throughout Asia Pacific. So this isn't quantitative research, it's qualitative research. Two different types of research, where quantitative is based on numbers and percentages. Qualitative is really based on the insights that you gather from people's experiences and skills. We had the fortune of doing these interviews after the emergence of COVID, so we did look at it with a COVID lens. The role of online travel agencies, or OTAs, and how they could directly support SMEs in recovery. We did look specifically at the Asia-Pacific context, given PATA's role in promoting the sustainable development of tourism within Asia-Pacific, and even now, more so importantly, that recovery option for working with the SMEs, destinations, and tourism businesses like Agoda to ensure that we are recovering back and building back a more sustainable tourism industry within Asia-Pacific. In terms of the definitions of what we looked at, so OTAs, online travel agencies, are very much companies operating in the mobile and online space. They either have a mobile app and or a website, and they help consumers directly book travel services and travel experiences. At the same point, they are aggregators, they're meta search platforms, they purchase, they promote, and they market travel and tourism experiences from the operator level, and then connecting them back with receptive consumers that want to purchase travel and tourism. On the flip side, the SMEs that we interviewed were private sector businesses in the travel and tourism industry in Asia Pacific. And the definition of SME, while it differs between jurisdictions in Asia Pacific, we had a cutoff level of a company with less than 250 employees. So, this could be anywhere from a local attraction that has, maybe 3 or 4 staff, a small, medium-size outfitter with, 5 to 6 staff, and upwards of a hotel operation with, 100 plus staff. But generally speaking, they're small and medium-sized enterprises that we spoke with. The same point too, SMEs are very important for Asia Pacific's travel and tourism industry because they represent anywhere between 95 and 98% of the total number of businesses operating in Asia Pacific countries. So they're vital for the economies, the travel and tourism economies for the Asia Pacific destinations where we did this research. In terms of the benefit that OTAs provide, it's twofold. They directly provide that benefit for the travel consumer because they're able to connect receptive travel consumers with a travel and tourism product. They're very vital for that connection ability. The same point too, on the flip side, they provide tourism operators with the ability to directly connect with the receptive travel consumer. So they're not just connecting consumers, they're providing that marketing channel, they're providing that brand awareness, and they're providing that point of purchase booking channel. So where, we know in the Asia-Pacific, they've got these travel agencies that are very, very important to connect consumers with receptive products, and also destination management companies. OTAs also provide that other link. So they're very vital in that overall value chain for how the Asia-Pacific travel and tourism industry can operate. With the research and through this research, it was very clear that three themes came up when we spoke to SMEs in terms of the clear benefit that they receive from OTAs. First and foremost, it's that route to market. OTAs provide, these small hoteliers, these attractions within a direct ability to get their services, their products, their experiences into the marketplace. The same point too, they have a vital role and a clear benefit of increasing brand awareness. And if you're a small tourism business and you want to gain exposure, no better way of doing that through an OTA. The third point, and this is related to both monetary seasonality and dispersal market share, OTAs again directly benefit SMEs by being able to provide them with increased market share and increased revenue, which is most important for SMEs, through their platforms. In this environment, this recovery period that we're going to be dominated in for the next 2 to 4 years, we know we're going to be dealing with an extremely price sensitive and value conscious travel consumer because of the decrease in the overall economy, especially in Asia Pacific. The second point here is we're dealing with a very cautious travel consumer that are confused with health and safety regulations and rules across different jurisdictions, which means it's a very highly competitive market, not just for destinations, DMOs and NTOs, but also those SMEs. OTAs provide an ability to address all of these challenges. As well, when we talked with the SMEs, it wasn't just that OTAs were providing, online travel agencies were providing a channel to connect to consumer. First and foremost, they were viewed as a marketing platform. OTAs provide an ability to connect their services, SME services and experiences with the right type of consumer in the right market at the right time. So this is being clearly listed as a marketing channel for them. The same point too, the other two related benefits for SMEs, for OTA benefits for SMEs with this data insights. With the enormous amount of data points that OTAs are dealing with, booking times, booking channels, types of consumers, price points, the ability to package and develop itineraries, all of this rich data insight was a clear benefit for SMEs who, in most cases do not have access to this type of data, nor an ability to crunch and develop insights from this data. So OTAs were clearly looked at as a data insights as well as a technology partner. In terms of the themes, the recommendations from the study, and I realize there's a lot of words on the screen, we came up with 4 main recommendations in terms of the role and the benefit of OTAs in being able to deliver and contribute to that recovery in Asia Pacific in the travel and tourism industry. The first one here is SMEs clearly noted the roles that OTAs play in building and promoting destination brands. And in terms of that path to purchase, consumers think destination, then they think experience, and then they hopefully think booking. And so there's a clear role that OTAs play in this environment. So there was a clear belief and an understanding that DMOs, destination marketing boards, or destination management organizations need to develop more cooperative marketing programs for destinations and tourism businesses with the role that OTAs can play in this. The other one here was developing out infrastructure, clear opportunity and role for governments to promote, develop, and enhance tourism infrastructure, because OTAs need this to work with SMEs to ensure that we are driving better dispersal in Asia-Pacific destinations, improving seasonality, and increasing community-based tourism, which creates wealth generation for communities. And the other two related factors are, again, very much linked, but that's providing upskilling for SMEs so that they can effectively work with OTAs as well as traditional travel agencies in being able to drive more and higher value tourism to destinations. And these were two very clearly linked recommendations that came out of the research. I realized I've talked for a while, probably talked relatively fast, so I'm going to pass it back to Paul now and put myself on mute. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Great presentation. If you want to know more about the report is available on our website. Just go to www.pata.org. And with that, thank you once again, Oliver. And with that, joining me now is the VP of Corporate Development at Agoda, Mr. Timothy Hughes. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Hi, Paul. Nice to be here.
Yes, well, thank you very much for joining us in this late afternoon here in Thailand.
Yeah.
So, as we know, the COVID-19 has had a really significant impact on travel and tourism. You know, billions of lost revenue and jobs. And of course, SMEs has been the most affected, and have been, they've had to adapt more quickly. So, as we said in the report, OTAs play a crucial role in the recovery process. In general, how do you think that might work, and maybe how does Agoda working with maybe governments or SMEs in this regard?
Yeah. I mean, first off, we've just got to acknowledge how devastating this was. I mean, who's ever going to forget April and March? Who's ever going to forget zero business? And who's ever going to forget the colleagues that we've had to say goodbye to because of the reduction in business? So I think all of us just have to acknowledge how brutal this has been as an industry. But we also have to acknowledge the upside, good side. I know good's a tough word to use, that even though travel stopped for a while, we were able to see as an industry that the desire for travel continued. That while they were locked in their homes, consumers were surfing their phones, desperate to find a place to go, desperate to plan their next trip. And a lot of that surfing and a lot of that exploration ended up on OTAs. And we were able to, even in the worst of times, we were able to see the eyeballs of where the consumers were looking for, knowing that when they started to book again, that we'd be able to help out the small and medium enterprises, even up to the large chains. We were able to help them out because we would have already seen what the consumers had been looking at. So I think a big part of the value we added was being able to pick all those trends as they started. The other big trend that happened, of course, is that the world went to a next level of digitization during COVID, the lockdowns. It went to what I'm calling a digital boot camp, right? Everybody went to digital school, right? As they started ordering food, consuming content, everybody from your grandmother to the 10-year-old was on their phone, living their life as a consumer, as a viewer, as a buyer in a digital environment. And that skill has carried over as they've started to leave their lockdowns and started to travel. So all the patterns that we know, I think that the guys, the people in the audience will know the patterns, that it's a domestic-led world, it's a shorter lead time world, it's a world where discounts and specials are needed to help bring that traveler out. It's a world where the traveler is looking for a better experience, a more connected experience, wants to see the beach, the ocean, the mountain. But in all of that, they have just proven that they are a digitized person. They are a digitized generation now. COVID taught them how to be digital. And the OTA sits there. That's where we sat. That's where we are. That's where we live. We live in that digital environment. So as travel bounces back, and I don't know if you want to use the word recovery or part recovery or beginning of the recovery or something like that, but as travel's bouncing back, the OTA has already started to absorb all that audience information, start to feed it back to our partners, start to help them understand how to work with it. We also went through, the other thing that all of us went through was an explosion of customer care, right? I mean, some of those days in March and April, I feel for our customer care people. The heartbreak on one side of the phone, the customers who wanted to cancel, the heartbreak on the other side of the phone, the SMEs and the hoteliers now empty and struggling. But we also, I think, proved a bit to our partners that we had a lot of resources in that area. We had a lot of people on the phone, on the email, on the chat, ready to help out, ready to be there and support everybody through this as best we could. And hopefully allow the property to spend more of their time focused on the immediate challenges of what's going on in the property. I think that's translated also into this recovery period where we're able to help properties out a lot more with figuring out what's going on in their demand patterns, have our customer care take up a lot of the challenges that they were experiencing, particularly with their headcount reduced, and allowing a lot of those small and medium enterprises focus on the changes they've got to make on the property, the cleaning they've got to do, the extra facilities they've got to make, the revamping of breakfast and the buffet and all that sort of challenges on property. They can leave a little bit more of that work on the data side and on the customer care side to people like us. So look, brutal. We've learned a lot, but I think the consumers are the ones that have learned the most, and they've learned to go digital at a rate that at an accelerated rate. And the OTA can sit there to help the small to medium property, the independent property with that digital journey by being there as that tech partner, as that distribution partner, and as that data partner.
Right. Yeah. Talking about, everyone having to get digital very quickly. I mean, even on a business level, right? I mean, how many Zoom webinars have we been through? The industry 4.0 has just jumped tremendously.
Sure.
So when we're talking about sort of this jump in industry, 4.0, right?
Yeah.
When OTAs first started, I guess till now, and it shows in the report as well, is the travel trade distribution model has changed. Yes. With massive growth of OTAs. Yes. So then how do SMEs remain relevant with this sort of changeover in the distribution model?
Well, the first one, they're critically relevant because they're the providers of incredible amounts of service and experience around the world and around this region. But even aside from that, I still think in this modern world that the direct and indirect channels need to work together. This is not about one or the other. So if you're a small to medium enterprise, you need to make sure you've got as good a direct strategy as you do as an OTA strategy. These two things are very important. They are hand in hand because they're different routes to market. There are different consumers looking at the OTA distribution than ones that are looking at direct. And we've seen this in many times in our research too. So the small to medium enterprise, the independent hotelier needs to have both of those things going on together. Now, the specific challenge that we have, the specific consumer that we're talking to is the one that's looking for lots of different choice and options. That's the consumer that we service. And they come, and I told they've gone to this digital boot camp, they've gone through 20 years of online travel, and then are on our app with a desire to find a lot of choice. And I think we quote in the report some Focusrite data showing that OTA share, slightly shifted from 46 to 48% of the business. So there's a lot of that business where the consumers are looking for a lot of choice, and that's where we sit there. Taking an independent property and a small to medium enterprise property that's sitting there in a massive market, trying to put its hand up in the marketing channel saying, here I am, find me. Whereas the OTA has collated all that, put it together and said, here is the place you can see it all. Here is the place, consumer, you can do that comparison and do that check. And we've also got an ability there to help that small to medium enterprise adjust quickly. If there's anything COVID's doing, it's telling us we have to adjust quickly. Let me give you a recent example. We all want to figure out how to tell the consumer what the cleanliness standards are at a property, right? What's going on. But that's the consumer side. The consumer wants to know, how often are you cleaning? What's clean? What are you doing? The property wants to know, what am I supposed to do? Right? I'm struggling just to keep my business afloat here at the moment. What are the standards I'm supposed to adhere to? So as an OTA, we can feed that information to the small to medium enterprise, to that independent hotelier. We can say, here is the standard you need to meet. We called it Hygiene Plus. Other OTAs will give it a different name, but we were able to say, here is the checklist. You don't have to do the research. Don't panic. We've got it figured out. Here is the hygiene checklist. Go through this checklist, follow those steps, and you will be clean as the consumers want you to be. And we can put a badge on Agoda and tell the consumer about it as well. So we can also sort of, as well as that distribution piece and having helped them find those digitized consumers, we can respond fast to what's going on, fill out information, send out information to these hoteliers, such as this hygiene story. So I think there's a big marketplace piece there. There's a big consumer data piece. There's a big sort of informing the consumer piece, all of which we can help the hotels do. Yeah.
Just to follow up on this, just quickly on this, is
sure.
The hygiene badge that you guys put on Agoda, has that been driving now more does that drive consumers to that particular property that have like that badge over other properties that don't have that badge?
Yes, I can say that definitively, because one of the things that OTAs like us do is we test everything. There's often a joke that we won't change a comma on the site without testing it. And what does that mean is we'll show the comma to half the audience and the other half won't see it. And we'll see what the consumer response is. So something like this Hygiene Plus badge, we can see in our testing that consumers respond to it more positively through conversion and bookings. So we can see that as just as a fact, because if it didn't work, we would stop doing it, because the testing would tell us that it's whether it's positive or negative. In this case, the testing's clear that it's positive.
Yeah, so travel consumer has really changed that, and health and hygiene will be a big focus. Now we talked about the SMEs, and when we talk about OTAs, we think a lot about just the private sector. Private sector working with the hoteliers and either SMEs or large ones working with the OTAs. But then how can governments and OTAs work together to revitalize the economy, particularly after COVID-19?
Yeah, no, look, it's a critical three-way dance here. We are all in this together: suppliers, distribution companies, tech companies like us, and the government. And I can see that personally. I've been fortunate enough to recently visit Samui, which is an inbound destination. And I've been fortunate enough just to come back from the far northwest of Thailand, which is sort of a hard to get to backpacker destination. And you can see on the streets just how devastated these places are, because they're just struggling in the absence of international inbound. And the governments of places like Thailand have recognized that and are running big and expensive support programs. So we've worked very closely with the Thai government. They had a program called Tea Together. We've also been working very closely with the Japanese tourism agency with their Go-To travel program. There are a couple other markets we're just in discussions with. This is definitely a three-way dance. And where the OTA can sort of help that independent properly is we can launch that stuff relatively quickly. So I could tell this story for Japan, but I think let's tell it for Thailand, because that's where I'm sitting. Our ability to launch the product that links the getting of the coupon from the customer to the booking in an online format was something we led the market in and able to do, in record time, because we grabbed all our developers and we said priority number one is to get this done. So the consumer could very rapidly, through the government process, register for their coupon and then come over to Agoda and get that saving and generate it as fast as possible. It wasn't an 8-week delay for whatever was going on product-wise. It was something we could do in mere moments. And we replicated that same process as one of the first international players to do that in Japan. So it's definitely a three-way dance. We're all in this together, and governments recognize the need to support their constituencies and support their marketplaces through that. And we're able to, as a technology company, get the process up and running as fast as we possibly can, so that government intention can get going very, very quickly. It's kind of a way to think about the level of big company tech that we can bring to a small company, like an independent hotelier. And this government example is a crucial example of that.
Yeah, I've heard about the work you guys done in Thailand. So being based in Thailand as well, it's fantastic to hear how different people are partnering to work together. So just going back to the SME aspect, then what's the feedback from SME hotels on the value that comes from partnering with OTAs, and what are you hearing from some of your partners? Yes.
So look, all relationships have ups and downs. So I won't pretend that everything is perfectly smooth, but we do our best. And a lot of the hoteliers, when we talk to them and they're telling about the things they like about us, it does fall into those similar three brackets we talked about in Martin's opening. The tech partner stuff that I've mentioned, our ability to bring big company distribution tech to a small property. I've talked a little bit about that in terms of the speed in which we can create things. I'll give another example of that. We were able to create a new cancellation product super fast called Easy Cancel. When consumers were just hesitant to do any booking that had any sort of restriction on it, we were able to very rapidly roll out across all of our partners the ability to give that flexibility that consumers were demanding. Without that flexibility, they would not book. So without that product, bookings weren't going to happen. So we could do that really quickly. So that big tech partner push. We're also able to do that marketing and reach. I already mentioned the implementation of the government programs relatively quickly, but the placement on so many millions of phones around Asia of our app, and our ability to do messaging through that app, to tell a story through that app, to run promotions through that app, to run our Go Local program, a big domestic push program through that app, enabled us to very quickly tell consumers in certain markets, travel is back. It's domestic, but it's back. And here are the players here are the hotels you need to visit right now because there's an amazing opportunity. And the last one, of course, is that data and our ability to communicate to properties what's going on in the data. An interesting one of those, for example, we can use an example is lead time. So when this COVID thing hit, lead times shrunk dramatically. I mean, domestic is a short lead time business anyway. We know this. But those lead times shrunk dramatically, shifted into the 1 day, 2 day, and 3 day out, more than any of us have ever seen before, ultra last minute. But then as markets start to get a little more normal, right? So people start to feel a calmer in terms of what's going on in their domestic markets. Korea being an example, Taiwan being an example, Thailand being an example. The lead times went back to mostly normal in terms of domestic. And we're able to share that with our partners. And we're able to talk to our hoteliers and say, here is what's going on in lead time. We can accumulate all this data in the market, share it with you, and we can give you some tools that you can use to take advantage of it, right? The ability to launch programs and specials and promotions targeted at those lead time opportunities. So they've sort of like us for that tech partner stuff. They like us for that marketing and reach stuff, and they like us for that data stuff.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm sure we can read more about more detail within the report as well.
Yeah.
I mean, during this time of COVID, we're talking about a lot of companies talking about the reset, right?
Yes.
And during this reset, a lot of organizations are looking, are adapting. And in the OTA space, we're seeing a lot of OTAs rolling out new features and products over the past couple of months. So how has COVID accelerated technology advancements at Agoda to ensure that you guys stay competitive and support your accommodation partners? And you mentioned a bit about Hygiene Plus, but
Yeah.
what else? What other things are you guys working at over there?
Yeah. I mean, and it all linked back to this theme I've talked about of Asia and the rest of the world, quite frankly, going through a digitization boot camp. I think one of the interesting things that we had to adjust the soonest was the speed with which our product turnaround happened. So if we talk first about speed, not to say we were slow, but we had the luxury outside of COVID to make a lot of long-term plans, build things that would start to see a year out, 2 years out, 3 years out. Whereas COVID said, no, you've got to focus on next week and next month. So we turned a lot of our attention to those immediate turnaround, immediate result products, the things that we could use to target the domestic business that existed right now. I've touched on a few of them. I touched on Easy Cancel, that change in the cancellation program. But let's spend a little bit more time on this Go Local program. So Go Local program was saying the consumers are traveling domestically. They need to know that things are safe. They need to know who is back open. And so we spent time not just on rates and availability, which is important, but we spent a lot of time on things like content, what's open, what's available, what's going on the property. So changing a lot of our management systems to make sure that the content was there to support a Go Local program. Plus, we had to talk to consumers about this. We had to let them know that things were going back live, so that we had to bring in marketing tech as well as sort of operational tech to tell the story about what's going on near you. So, for example, we ran marketing programs, probably the first time in our history that none of our imagery involved an airplane, right? Because it was who's flying. Even like our imagery involved people on the ground experiencing what was happening, but none of it involved that, glamorous martini in the sky, how you get there thing, right? It was so there was technology involved in us distributing that, but also technology in us understanding. Look, let's not market flying. Let's market getting there and being local and being engaged with your community. So we had a big sort of marketing tech push. So the themes coming out, it was shortening our development cycle, ensuring we focused on what was going on domestic and that flexibility, but also ensuring we could tell that message both in content and in influencer activity and social media and in video, not involving an airplane, to tell people that the local market was open and it was time to go local.
But so you worked with, like, I guess, domestic influencers,
Yeah.
and I guess your accommodation partners would then give you the content to then help put that all together.
Yeah, and there was a two-stage piece to that content too. We did lockdown content, if you like. So this was content around dreaming about travel, maybe even pretending to travel. For example, we did exercise content on what it would be like to get ready to go trekking again, right? But then as the lockdown started to ease in a bunch of markets, we had to flip that into, okay, now's the time, right? But that content was about, here is what's going on in the 2 to 4 hour drive market around your capital city. So we have to, again, react quickly as we catch the consumer desire, the consumer behavior to even change the way we were producing content.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Tim. I think we're out of time here, but yes, if you have any questions, you can email me and I could pass them to Tim. Tim, I think, speaks at a lot of events. I saw him just a few weeks ago at another event online. So thank you once again, Tim. And I'll see you around at Bangkok. Oliver, thank you so much for your presentation. It's Oliver Martin from 2031 who helped us author the report that is on our website. And with that, let me just share my screen again. Again, my name is Pruangkarn. If you have any questions about today's session or about the report that is just released just now, depending on what day you're watching this video, but it's just been recently released. It's called the Role of Online Travel Agencies in Supporting Asia-Pacific SMEs in Recovery. You can find the report on our website at www.pata.org, or you can email me. My email is paul@pata.org. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, thank you to Tim and Oliver for their time at this session. And hopefully we will all travel together soon and be able to meet in face-to-face. So take care and thank you so much.